Back when we was coming up, we'd have life. We'd have double life. I'd be looking at you myself. Yeah, you had to kill Carlos. Man.
The television screen became the stage for an explosive spectacle when a renowned entertainer stepped into a political arena that few ever anticipated would be challenged so directly. The event unfolded with unyielding force as a celebrated figure, known for his versatility and unfiltered commentary, delivered a barrage of criticisms directed at the personal life of one of the nation's most polarizing figures. In a display that was as theatrical as it was unorthodox, the performance took aim at the foundation of the family life upheld by an influential leader and his spouse, laying bare accusations that reverberated with implications that went far beyond the moment of broadcast. The audience, already primed by a mix of anticipation and trepidation, found themselves drawn into an unfolding drama that blurred the lines between entertainment, political critique, and raw personal exposure. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. From the outset, the atmosphere was charged with an intensity that could be felt in the hushed anticipation of viewers. The broadcast was set against an impeccable backdrop of modern television production values, where every camera angle, every shifting light, and every calculated pause contributed to a sense of impending revelation. The focus was not merely on the spectacle, it was on the convergence of two worlds, one defined by celebrity flair and another by the often rigid and scrutinized sphere of political leadership. As the admired entertainer began his discourse, his tone was measured yet seething with barely concealed disdain. It was a moment that would compel viewers to re-examine the boundaries of public image and private behavior, to question the moral fiber of a leader who had long been hailed as emblematic of power and success. Throughout the broadcast, the performance was a master class in the art of rhetoric and stage presence. The entertainer's language was at once incisive and poetic, weaving together historical references and modern colloquialisms in a manner that resonated with both critics and admirers alike. His approach was neither timid nor conciliatory. Rather, it was a deliberate unmasking of inconsistencies that many had long suspected but rarely saw articulated so forcefully in a live setting. The central focus of his tirade was the personal life of a newly acclaimed leader, whose marriage had been carefully curated to embody an image of stability and commitment. This illusion of marital solidity was suddenly and ruthlessly questioned in an environment where every word was amplified by the immediacy of live television. The performance took on an almost cinematic quality as the entertainer dissected the symbolic pillars upon which the family image was built. His criticism was not limited to abstract principles of leadership or governance. It penetrated deeply into the realm of personal relationships and intimate trust. Accusations emerged, suggesting that the revered leader had engaged in relationships that betrayed the fundamental promises made not only to his partner, but also to the electorate. Such allegations, particularly when aired so vividly on television, underscored a profound dissonance between public persona and private behavior, a dichotomy that had long been a subject of public fascination. The emphasis on personal failings in such a highly visible forum brought with it a broader reflection on the standards expected of public figures and the consequences when those expectations are defied. In the charged dialogue that unfolded, the entertainer's strategy was to dismantle the carefully constructed edifice of marital loyalty and personal honor. With an unerring sense of timing and a depth of insight into both entertainment and the political process, he methodically questioned the veracity of claims to fidelity that had long been taken for granted. His address was punctuated by pointed comparisons that contrasted the polished public image with the unvarnished reality of private indiscretions. The deliberate reference to alleged extramarital entanglements was not meant merely to titillate or provoke controversy. It was a calculated effort to expose an underlying hypocrisy. The message was clear. The persona cultivated for public consumption was increasingly at odds with the realities of personal conduct, and this disparity could no longer be ignored in a media landscape that demanded authenticity and accountability. The implications of this televised confrontation are manifold and resonant with broader cultural shifts. On one level, the performance was a direct commentary on the relationship between celebrity culture and political leadership. Over recent years, the lines have blurred significantly between individuals who command attention on the entertainment circuit and those who govern through institutional power. The appearance of a cultural icon stepping into the fray to challenge a political figure's personal integrity served as a stark reminder that in the modern era, no one, no matter how exalted his position, can claim immunity from public scrutiny. The event underscored the fact that political authority is now as much about personal character as it is about policy and governance, and that the private missteps of a leader can have profound implications on his public credibility. At a deeper level, the broadcast forced a reckoning with the concept of marital fidelity in the eyes of the public. The institution of marriage, particularly among those in positions of power, has long been wrapped in layers of expectation and myth. The televised dissection of this particular marriage was not simply about personal betrayal. It was emblematic of a larger crisis of trust that can affect any relationship where public trust has been placed above personal boundaries. The entertainer's direct reference to alleged affairs compelled viewers to consider the extent to which personal behavior informs political legitimacy. It was a call to recognize that leadership is not merely a matter of executive decisions and strategic vision, but also a reflection of the moral and ethical standards that society as a whole values. The event also highlighted the increasing democratization of public debate through modern media channels. In days gone by, the private affairs of leaders were shielded by layers of protocol and decorum. Today, however, the media environment is a crucible in which every facet of a public figure's life is subject to vigorous examination. The live nature of the broadcast meant that there was no opportunity for image management or carefully curated responses. Instead, viewers were presented with an unvarnished analysis that left little room for misinterpretation. This unfiltered approach resonated with an audience that has grown weary of carefully rehearsed political platitudes and now demands a more honest portrayal of those who hold positions of authority. Beyond the immediate shock value, the confrontation served as a potent reminder of the power dynamics at play in a society that is increasingly influenced by celebrity. The entertainer's stature was not solely built on his accomplishments in film and music. It was also cemented by his ability to engage in real-time cultural critique. His performance was a demonstration that influence is not confined to traditional power brokers, but can be wielded just as effectively by those whose primary domain is one of artistic expression and public dialogue. In doing so, the event not only challenged the specific narrative surrounding a prominent leader's marriage, but also sent a broader message about the evolving nature of authority in contemporary society. At its core, the broadcast was a confrontation between two divergent worlds. On one side stood the well-oiled machine of political power, a domain where image, perception, and control are often prioritized above all else. On the opposite side stood a figure whose very career has been predicated on the ability to be both relatable and incisively critical, whose public presence is built on moments of vulnerability mixed with unabashed humor. The ensuing clash was not merely an exchange of words, but a symbolic battle over what it means to be a leader in the modern age. The focus on personal indiscretions, particularly in a marriage that many had thought to be beyond reproach, underscored a fundamental tension between the public role and the private self, a tension that is increasingly becoming a battleground for cultural debates. The televised event also served as an exploration of the ethics of public criticism. In addressing such sensitive matters in a live broadcast, the performer navigated treacherous ethical territory. While there is an undeniable need for accountability, the method of delivery carries its own set of implications. The manner in which personal accusations are aired publicly blurs the distinction between legitimate critique and the spectacle of scandal. The ensuing dialogue forced viewers to confront questions about the limits of acceptable criticism in a society that increasingly demands transparency even in the most intimate aspects of life. It raised essential questions about the responsibilities of both the critic and the individual being criticized, and whether the exposure of personal failings should always come with a measured consideration of context and consequence. In the realm of televised political commentary, few events have carried the weight of this confrontation. The eloquence with which the entertainer dissected the carefully constructed image of personal fidelity attached to political power revealed an underlying belief that leaders must be held accountable not only for their policy decisions, but also for the personal choices that define their character. His approach, which fused humor with a serious moral inquiry, created a dynamic interplay between entertainment and earnest critique. The discourse was not merely a diatribe against infidelity. It was an indictment of the double standards that often allow public figures to maintain a facade of perfection, even when their private actions speak to very different values. This moment on television captured the imagination of a public increasingly attuned to the nuances of personal integrity and accountability. It underscored the notion that in an era defined by rapid information sharing and an insatiable appetite for authenticity, the personal lives of those in power are no longer the stuff of closed-door conversations, but rather a matter for public discourse. The raw emotional power of the performance, combined with its razor-sharp critique, compelled viewers to reevaluate their expectations of leadership. It illuminated the reality that personal betrayals, no matter how deeply hidden, eventually find a way into the public sphere, where they are dissected and analyzed with unrelenting scrutiny. Moreover, the event provided a lens through which to examine the changing relationship between media and politics. In an age where social media and real-time broadcasting have rendered the traditional boundaries of public and private nearly obsolete, moments such as this become historical markers. They exemplify a shift in the way society demands its leaders to behave, emphasizing that transparency and authenticity are paramount. The confrontation on screen can be seen as a manifestation of a broader cultural trend in which public figures are no longer afforded the luxury of separation between their personal conduct and their professional responsibilities. Instead, every action, every personal indiscretion becomes an integral part of the narrative that defines their public persona. The ripple effects of this televised moment resonate on multiple levels. It acts as a case study in the complex dance between power and vulnerability. In exposing alleged personal failings, the performance underscored that even the most meticulously managed images of leadership are vulnerable to being undermined by revelations of human frailty. The audience was confronted with the unsettling reality that the personal lives of leaders are inextricably linked to their public efficacy. The convergence of celebrity influence and political authority in this instance exemplified a growing recognition that in today's interconnected media landscape, no aspect of personal conduct can remain insulated from scrutiny. This interplay between vulnerability and strength is particularly significant when viewed through the lens of cultural norms regarding marriage and fidelity. The institution of marriage, long heralded as a private bond insulated from the erosive forces of political ambition, was recast as a public institution where personal loyalty is as critical as political trustworthiness. The performance forced a contemplation of whether a leader's personal life can or should remain entirely separate from their role in the public realm. In challenging the sanctity of a marriage that had long been elevated to a symbol of national pride, the entertainer made a bold statement about the evolving standards of what constitutes ethical leadership. In an era marked by rapid shifts in societal expectations and a growing impatience with established power structures, the televised critique stands as a powerful symbol of change. It questions the legitimacy of a persona that has been meticulously cultivated over years, if not decades, and suggests that in the face of undeniable personal shortcomings, no amount of political prowess can ultimately insulate a leader from public reproach. The performance subtly shifted the focus from policy debates and ideological stances to a more fundamental concern. The trust that is placed in those who hold the reins of power must be built on both personal and professional integrity. The encounter also illuminated the delicate balance between the spectacle of performance art and the weight of ethical accountability. The entertainer's words were delivered with a cadence that mimicked both stand-up comedy and solemn social commentary. This duality, the capacity to entertain while simultaneously critiquing, added layers of complexity to the event. It was not simply a matter of sensationalism, it was a meticulously crafted intervention that forced a reconsideration of the relationship between the performer and the subject of his criticism. The ramifications extended beyond the immediate shock value, challenging the audience to reflect on whether such performances might be a necessary catalyst in a political culture increasingly obsessed with image over substance. In a broader sense, the event serves as a wake-up call about the modern expectations placed on public figures. The traditional boundaries that once protected private lives from public examination appear increasingly porous, inviting intense scrutiny into areas that were once considered sacrosanct. The confrontation highlighted how the convergence of media, celebrity, and politics can transform personal issues into matters of national debate. It laid bare the contradictions inherent in a system that demands perfection from its leaders while simultaneously celebrating the spontaneity and authenticity of celebrity culture. In doing so, it raised fundamental questions about the nature of leadership in an era where personal and public lives are inextricably entwined. The cultural significance of this televised moment can be measured by its impact on public discourse. It challenged long-held assumptions about the invulnerability of political figures, revealing instead that they are as susceptible to human failings as anyone else. In an environment where the line between public service and personal accountability has become increasingly blurred, the event acted as a catalyst for a broader reassessment of the qualities that define effective leadership. It underscored the belief that credibility is not solely derived from political accomplishments or the projection of strength, but also from the integrity with which a leader conducts personal relationships. The performance also has implications for the future of political communication. In a media landscape dominated by instantaneous reactions and viral moments, the event demonstrated how a single, unfiltered broadcast can encapsulate the frustrations of an increasingly disillusioned public. It revealed that the power of televised confrontation lies not only in its ability to expose flaws, but also in its capacity to galvanize a sense of shared critical awareness among viewers. The narrative that emerged from this moment was one in which the traditional separation between personal and professional realms was irreversibly altered, setting a precedent for future public engagements that might similarly challenge established hierarchies. What emerged from the broadcast was more than just a fierce critique of personal indiscretions. It was a dramatic recontextualization of what it means to serve as a public figure. The confrontation invited its audience to consider that the personal virtues of honesty, loyalty, and vulnerability are not peripheral concerns, but essential components of the broader trust that underpins democratic governance. The performance resonated deeply with viewers who have grown increasingly skeptical of the polished images offered by traditional political figures, demanding instead that their leaders embody a transparency that is both rare and revolutionary. In exposing alleged personal failings, the entertainer redefined the parameters of political legitimacy, suggesting that true leadership requires an alignment between one's public image and private reality. Moreover, the event exemplified the transformative power of media to reshape conventional narratives. It served as a stark illustration of how a single televised moment can upend established discourses and leave an indelible mark on public perception. The courage it took to publicly question the integrity of a leader by attacking deeply personal issues demonstrated that the era of unchecked authority may well be drawing to a close. In a culture that increasingly prizes authenticity and accountability over tradition and political maneuvering, the confrontation on live television emerged as a powerful metaphor for the shifting balance of power between those in authority and the citizens they serve. The very nature of the televised encounter also forces a re-examination of the role played by entertainers in the political arena. Traditionally seen as purveyors of humor and cultural commentary, these figures are now increasingly recognized for their potential to serve as watchdogs of social and political ethics. The performance was a notable instance where celebrity influence intersected with civic critique in a manner that transcended conventional expectations. It underscored the notion that in today's interconnected society, the distinctions between political punditry and performance art are rapidly dissolving, paving the way for a new paradigm where public figures are held accountable by voices from all corners of the cultural spectrum. At its heart, the event was a reflection of a broader societal shift toward valuing truth and personal accountability over carefully constructed images. It forced those watching to confront the uncomfortable possibility that personal relationships, regardless of the public stature of those involved, are subject to the same standards of scrutiny as any other aspect of one's character. The confrontation challenged an entrenched belief that the personal lives of leaders are beyond reproach, instead asserting that the authenticity of these private realms is integral to the public trust. By exposing alleged discrepancies between public image and personal reality, the entertainer not only questioned the legitimacy of a revered marital bond, but also redefined the expectations for political leadership in an era where transparency is demanded more than ever before. The performance resonated powerfully with individuals from diverse backgrounds, inviting them to join in a collective reimagining of what it means to hold power in modern society. It underscored the intimate connection between personal morality and political authority, suggesting that a leader's private behavior is not merely a personal matter, but one that reflects on the broader values of the communities they serve. The televised confrontation carved out a space for a national conversation about fidelity, accountability, and the true measure of leadership. It highlighted the need for public figures to embody the personal virtues that they extol, challenging an entrenched culture in which personal indiscretions had long been tolerated if they did not impede professional achievements. In casting an unflinching spotlight on the intricacies of personal relationships within the framework of public service, the broadcast illuminated the interplay between individual accountability and the collective responsibility of society. The confrontation shattered long-held notions that personal missteps should be compartmentalized away from one's professional life, and instead argued that the two are inherently linked. The implications of this realization extend beyond a single television moment, suggesting a future in which personal integrity becomes a cornerstone of political legitimacy. As viewers absorbed each carefully delivered word and each meticulously timed pause, they were reminded that authenticity in leadership is a quality that can neither be easily manufactured nor altogether ignored. While the performance was undeniably a moment of high drama, it was also a profound commentary on the broader ethics of leadership and public service. It questioned whether political authority can truly be effective if it rests on a foundation that is compromised by personal betrayal. The critique did not simply seek to castigate an individual for alleged missteps. It was a call to action for a more honest and transparent form of governance that holds itself to the same high standards it expects of its citizens. The event thus became a microcosm for the larger societal debate over the nature of power and the criteria by which it should be measured, a debate that is as old as democracy itself. In the charged moments that followed the unrelenting confrontation, the viewer was left with a powerful sense of disillusionment, a recognition that the personas celebrated in public life are not immune to the complexities and imperfections inherent in every human relationship. The broadcaster's performance was a visceral reminder that when the personal collides with the political, the repercussions are both profound and far-reaching. It was an invitation to scrutinize not just the credentials and policies of those in power, but the fundamental values that guide their private lives. In doing so, it redefined the parameters of public accountability in a way that promises to reverberate through future generations of political discourse. As the live broadcast continued, every carefully chosen word and every calculated inflection played its part in constructing a narrative that was both scathing and thought-provoking. The confrontation was not designed to serve as a simple exposé of personal failings, but rather as a transformative moment of cultural introspection. In exploring the tensions between public admiration and personal accountability, the performance unveiled the hidden fissures in a once untouchable persona, fissures that, once exposed, had the power to redefine the relationship between a leader and the public trust. It was a demonstration of how personal imperfection, when laid bare in such a public forum, can serve as a catalyst for broader discussions about the integrity, ethics, and future of leadership in a society that increasingly refuses to accept curated illusions. The unfolding of this dramatic exchange on live television was a bold deviation from conventional political commentary. It set a new benchmark for what is considered acceptable discourse in a time when the blending of celebrity culture and political accountability has become increasingly common. What made the event truly extraordinary was not merely the force of its allegations or the vivid imagery of its critique, but rather the way it compelled a nation to re-examine the basic tenets of trust, loyalty, and authenticity that are supposed to undergird a stable and effective leadership. The performance, in its raw, unmediated form, was a wake-up call. An emphatic reminder that even the most powerful among us are held accountable by a public that has grown both discerning and unwilling to tolerate hypocrisy. This episode stands as a testament to the fact that, in our contemporary media landscape, the boundaries that once separated the personal from the political have become increasingly porous, The confrontation not only destabilized a carefully curated narrative of marital fidelity and political strength, but also sparked a broader discourse on the responsibilities that accompany public office. Its legacy, though not measured by immediate repercussions, is found in the way it forces a continuous reflective dialogue about truth in leadership. A dialogue that will undoubtedly influence how future generations perceive the intersection of personal life and public duty. In sum, the dramatic live television event was a multifaceted spectacle that transcended simple political criticism to engage with deep-seated cultural, ethical, and societal issues. It was a moment that invited relentless introspection about the true meaning of trust, accountability, and authenticity in an era where personal mistakes are no longer hidden away in the shadows of political power. The broadcast challenged the enduring myth that high office is synonymous with moral superiority, and underscored the reality that every leader, regardless of their public image, is a fallible human being. This understanding, delivered with unyielding force and emotional clarity, is perhaps one of the most important takeaways from an event that has indelibly reshaped the conversation on political leadership in modern society. Through its unvarnished critique and compelling narrative, the televised confrontation captured a defining moment in which the imperatives of personal integrity collided headlong with the expectations of public leadership. It compelled its audience to reassess long-held beliefs about the sanctity of personal relationships and the necessity for absolute honesty from those who govern. The event ultimately stands as a mirror reflecting the evolving cultural landscape, a landscape where the call for authenticity and transparency has never been louder, and where the integration of personal and public accountability sets the stage for a future defined by an unwavering commitment to truth. This transformative moment not only highlighted the vulnerabilities inherent in any public persona, but also underscored the immense power of celebrity to shape public debate. The performance was emblematic of an era where traditional markers of authority are increasingly challenged by voices that speak from a place of genuine cultural insight and moral clarity. By laying bare the discrepancies between public image and private conduct, the event forced an honest appraisal of the values that bind a society together. A society that now demands that its leaders stand not only as efficient policymakers, but as paragons of personal virtue as well. In the charged aftermath of the broadcast, the resonance of each measured word and each deliberate inflection has set the stage for a long overdue re-examination of the standards by which political figures are judged. It is a reminder that in a world where media is the primary arena for public discourse, the personal lives of those in power are as significant as their public actions. By directly addressing the delicate issues of fidelity and personal honor, the performance ushered in a new era of scrutiny where no aspect of a leader's character can be considered immutable or beyond question. The encounter on live television will be remembered not only for its daring confrontation of established norms, but also for its profound impact on the collective imagination. It opened up a space for dialogue that challenges both political elites and citizens alike to acknowledge the essential role that personal integrity plays in the fabric of public life. The broadcast was a stirring demonstration of the transformative potential of media to hold power to account, to bridge the divide between the personal and the political, and to inspire a more holistic understanding of what true leadership demands in today's ever-evolving cultural climate. In every sense, the televised event was a watershed moment, a dramatic juncture in the ongoing evolution of political discourse. It harnessed the raw power of live media to expose the contradictions inherent in a system that often champions polished images over sincere morality. The confrontation served as a clarion call for a future in which transparency is valued above all, an era in which the inseparable connection between a leader's private integrity and public accountability is recognized as the cornerstone of genuine ethical governance. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on Jamie Foxx's comments about Donald Trump's marriage? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.